Today we are working on Excel Expert Lesson 3, the 7th lesson, creating a pivot chart. So we've been creating pivot tables, now we're going to do a chart. So with the Sales Pivot Chart workbook open, select any cell from A1 to select anywhere. On the Insert tab, click Pivot in the Charts group. Fool me. Click Pivot Chart, don't click Pivot Table like I almost did. Pivot Chart. Verify that the correct range A1 to E2009 is selected. This chart's going to be placed in a new worksheet, so click OK. In the Pivot Table Fields pane, select the sale type and amount paid. Turn those on. Notice the Excel links a pivot chart to a pivot table. Therefore, as you define your pivot chart, the pivot table is created on the worksheet at the same time. Select the payment type checkbox to turn that on, and then drag payment type from the axis to the legend. So payment, kind of like we did with rows and columns. Drag the pivot chart to the blank area below the table. So drag it down here. Mark that as answered. Go to the next one. Click Sheet 2 to go to that worksheet. If necessary, click on any cell in the pivot table to activate the pivot table fields and task pane. So we got to do that. On the Pivot Table Analyze tab, so click up here on the Pivot Table Analyze. In the Tools group, we're going to click Pivot Chart. With the Clustered Column Chart, far left column category. So we're in the column category, clustered columns. So make sure you've selected that and then click OK. Move the pivot chart to a new position below the table. This pivot chart is identical to the one in Sheet 3, but was created using the Pivot Chart command in the Pivot Table Tools ribbon. If you make any changes to the pivot table, the pivot chart will automatically change as well. Click the columns label, auto filter. So click this. Select air miles and cash checkboxes to turn them off. Air miles and cash. We turn those off and then click OK. And that would affect your table. Mark that as answered. Go to the next one. Select the Sheet 1 worksheet. Then on the Insert tab, in the Charts group, we're going to click Pivot Chart. In the Create Pivot Chart dialog box, select the Add This Data to the Data Model. So check that box right there to turn that on. Verify the correct cell range has been selected, A1 to E2009. And then click OK. In the Pivot Charts field pane, oh, it's taking it a second. I'm like, well, why is mine doing nothing? We're going to select sale type, amount paid, and payment type checkboxes to turn those on. Drag the payment type field from the axis to the legend. Payment type from axis to legend. Notice that the pivot chart appears on its own without any pivot table being visible. Mark that as answered. Go to the next one. Drag the pivot chart to the upper left area of the worksheet. So let's drag that up here. On the Pivot Chart Analyze tab, in the Filter group, click Insert Slicer. Insert Slicer. In the Insert Slicers dialog box, select the Payment Type checkbox to turn that on and click OK. In the Payment Type Slicer box, Click the Amex button. Press and hold the control key and click Diners Card, MasterCard, and Visa. And then release the control key so we don't have cash on here anymore. Mark that as answered. Go to the next one. In the pivot chart fields pane, drag the sale type field to the legend series. So we're going to click down here on sales type and we're going to drag that over here. I had to click on it. Couldn't drag it, so we got to do it over here. But this wasn't up before, so if yours wasn't up, if you click on that, it's going to be so sales type to the legend series. There we go. This one takes a little longer, I guess, because there's more data in it. In the pivot chart fields pane, drag the sale type field back to the axis category. Mark is answered. Submit. Submit results. 5 green check marks. So this completes creating a pivot chart.